She froze mid-step. It was just one sentence. I recorded everything. But it hit her like a punch to the chest. The air in the room shifted. Warm turned cold. Her eyes darted toward him, expressionless, calm, seated at the dining table like he'd just asked for sugar in his tea. But Meher couldn't breathe. He had said it like it was nothing. Just a casual remark. But she knew him. And she knew when he meant something. Had he really done it? Recorded everything? Her mind began spinning. Not just because of what he said, but how he said it. Flat. Calm. No accusation, no emotion. Just that quiet sentence, hanging in the air like a noose. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Her palms were suddenly slick. The walls around her felt too close, like they were closing in. He knew. She didn't know how much, but he knew something. And if he had proof, real proof, then everything she'd worked so hard to keep buried, could come crashing down in seconds. She sat down slowly, her legs barely holding her. Across the table, Naveed didn't blink. His phone was face down, the TV was off, and the only sound was the slow ticking of the old wall clock. Tick. 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 You don't believe me? He finally asked, voice low. She shook her head, more out of instinct than denial. Fine, he said, sliding the phone toward her. Play this. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The screen lit up. A voice note. Unopened. She hesitated. Her thumb hovered over the play button. You should listen to it, he added, softly this time. It's all there. Meher pressed play. 2 days earlier. They had just come back from the hospital. His mother had fallen again. Nothing serious, but enough to shake the household. The family gathered, offering help and fake concern. Meher had watched it all like a play she had seen too many times. Fake smiles. Quiet stabs. The perfect daughter-in-law mask. She had worn it well. But behind the scenes? She was exhausted. Tired of the games. Of pretending. Of hiding. Hiding things no one would understand. Not even Naveed. Especially not Naveed. That night, he had come to bed late. His face unreadable. Meher was already under the covers, pretending to scroll her phone. You okay? She had asked, careful. Yeah, he had said, crawling into bed. Just, tired. But he wasn't. She felt it. Something had shifted. Back to now. The recording ended. The room was silent. Meher's heart was racing. Her fingers curled around the edge of the table to stop herself from shaking. I can explain, she whispered. Naveed looked at her, eyes calm, but cold. Can you? He asked. It's not what it sounds like. It sounds like you were planning to disappear. And take something with you. She blinked. He knew. But how? How much? She had been so careful. A week ago, a letter arrived at their doorstep. No stamp. No sender. Just folded paper inside. Naveed had opened it, assuming it was some neighbor's notice. Instead, it was a single line. You don't know the woman sleeping next to you. At first, he thought it was a joke. Maybe even a prank from one of his cousins. But 3 days later, another message appeared. This time on his windshield. Ask her about the clinic in Sector 17. He didn't say anything to Meher. Just watched. Observed. Something inside him stirred, an uneasiness he hadn't felt in years. And then, he started recording. He placed a small voice recorder inside the living room clock. Another in the study lamp. One even in the car. Just in case. And then he waited. And what he heard over the next few days chilled him. Not violence. Not threats. Not screaming. Just Meher. Calm, precise, secretive. Making calls when she thought no one was home. Talking in a voice he didn't recognize. Giving instructions. Mentioning names he had never heard before. The scariest part? She sounded in control. Like she'd done this before. Now, across from her, Naveed finally asked the question that had been burning in him. Who are you really, Meher? She looked at him, eyes glossy, lips pale. For a moment, the mask cracked. I didn't want to drag you into this, she said. You weren't supposed to know. Know what? She exhaled sharply, stood up, and walked to the window. Outside, a crow cawed and flew off. There's something I never told you, she began. About before we met. 10 years ago. Meher had vanished for 4 months. No records. No messages. No explanation to her friends. When she returned, she was thinner. Colder. And there was a scar on her back she refused to talk about. She told everyone she had gone to live with relatives in another city. But it was a lie. The truth? She had been part of something. Something she thought she left behind. But that world doesn't let go so easily. Back in the room, Naveed stared at her. What were you doing at that clinic? He asked. Why were you using a different name? Meher turned to him. This time, she didn't deny it. Because I had to check if someone was still alive. The words hung in the air. Alive? Who? Her voice dropped. The man I thought I killed. Silence. Naveed felt his stomach twist. His breath caught. You, what? She nodded slowly, almost numbly. I don't know if I actually did. But I saw the blood. I saw him fall. And then. I ran. Naveed's mouth went dry. Why would you do that? Who was he? Meher's voice trembled for the first time. He was part of something, underground. Dangerous. And I had information he wanted. I was just a translator for a research project. I didn't know what I had, until it was too late. She looked at him now, fully. Vulnerable. Terrified. I didn't lie to you because I wanted to. I lied to survive. Naveed leaned back in his chair. Trying to process. His wife. The quiet, composed, thoughtful woman he thought he knew. Now revealing things that sounded like a thriller script. So you think he's alive? She nodded. Someone's been watching me again. Calling from private numbers. Leaving notes. And last week, I saw a man at the metro station. I could have sworn it was him. Naveed closed his eyes. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was danger. Suddenly, a sound outside. A sharp knock at the door. They both went still. 3 knocks. Then silence. Naveed stood up. Don't, Meher whispered. Don't open it yet. He walked slowly to the door. Another knock. Slower this time. He reached for the handle. Wait. Meher said again, louder. But it was too late. He opened the door. Nothing. No one was there. Except an envelope. Plain white. He picked it up. Inside, a photograph. It was grainy. But clear enough. It was Meher. 2 nights ago. At the clinic. And scribbled at the bottom, in red ink. I'm not dead. I've just been waiting. The photo shook in Naveed's hand as he stared at it. Meher. Clear as day. standing in front of the Sector 17 clinic. Hair tied back. Hands clutching her bag. Looking over her shoulder. And underneath, in red ink. "I'm not dead. I've just been waiting." He turned the photo around. Blank. He looked again down the corridor, no one. Just silence. He stepped back into the flat, shut the door slowly, and locked it. "It's him," Meher said, voice low, certain. Naveed turned toward her. Her face was pale, but her jaw was tight, like she was bracing for something. "You sure?" She nodded. "That message, that handwriting, it's exactly how he used to write. He's playing the same games again." Naveed dropped the envelope on the table. "You told me he was dead." "I told you I thought he was," she snapped. "You think I'd lie about something like that? I lived in fear for years. I changed cities. Changed my name. I married you to start over." The silence between them was thick. "So what do we do now?" Naveed asked. "Go to the police?" Meher shook her head immediately. "They won't help. He's not just some psycho ex. He was part of something much bigger. Something that could get us both killed." Naveed exhaled, dragging a hand down his face. He felt like he'd stepped into a world he didn't recognize, a life he hadn't signed up for. That night, they barely slept. Meher sat by the window, eyes scanning the street every few minutes. Naveed stayed in the hallway, phone in hand, waiting for another knock. Another sign. But nothing came. Just the sound of dogs barking in the distance. A flickering street lamp. And an old taxi that passed by twice, too slow to be casual. The next morning, Meher was gone. Naveed woke up on the couch, neck sore, mouth dry. The blanket she'd placed over him had slipped to the floor. Her bag was missing. So were her walking shoes. "Meher?" he called out, panic setting in. "Meher?" No response. He checked the bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, nothing. Then he saw it, a note, stuck to the fridge with a magnet. "Don't follow me. I need to fix this before it finds you too." Naveed didn't think. He grabbed his car keys and left. He had only one clue, Sector 17. That clinic. The one in the photo. Whatever she was hiding, it started there. The place wasn't far. Just 30 minutes away, but it felt longer. The city blurred past him, shops, traffic, school kids, all meaningless background noise. His focus was razor sharp. When he pulled up outside the clinic, he paused. It looked empty. Not closed, just abandoned. Peeling paint. A flickering sign. One window was cracked open. But something felt off. He stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Old disinfectant, mixed with dust and mold. The air was thick. The hallway lights were off, but a faint glow came from the far room. He moved slowly, footsteps echoing on the linoleum floor. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. He pushed open the door. And there she was. Meher. Standing in front of a filing cabinet. Papers spread out across a rusted desk. She didn't look surprised to see him. "I told you not to follow me," she said, without turning. "Yeah, well, that stopped working about 5 secrets ago," he snapped. She finally turned. "I found it," she said. "The original report. It's still here." "What report?" "The one that started everything." 10 years ago, Meher had worked as a field translator on a medical outreach project. The organization was real, reputable even, but one of the research divisions, tucked under a different name, was anything but clean. She'd been assigned to decode patient interviews collected in remote regions. Nothing strange, until she realized some of the interviews didn't match the medical files. In fact, they weren't medical at all. They were testimonies, she explained. People who had been taken somewhere, experimented on. "You're serious?" Naveed said, barely believing. They weren't just patients. They were subjects. I flagged it, thinking it was a data mistake. That's when things changed. Her supervisor was replaced. Security increased. One day, her ID access stopped working. Then someone tried to break into her apartment. And finally, the man came. His name was Rayhan. A research handler. But he was more than that. He had a calmness that felt wrong, she said. Like someone who had done terrible things but learned to smile through them. One night, he came to her door. No threats. No violence. Just a simple warning. Some files aren't meant to be opened. Close this chapter and disappear. Or be erased. But Meher didn't back down. She saved the files. Hid them. Tried to leave. That night, Rayhan followed her. There was a struggle. I hit him, she said. With a metal rod. He fell. I ran. I thought he was dead. Now, 10 years later, the files were still here. Old. Dusty. But real. Naveed stared at them. Photos. Records. Names. Why would he come after you now, he asked. After all these years? Because someone's reopening the case, she replied. Or, someone never stopped. She picked up a photograph. This boy, he was in one of the reports. His name was Azan. I found his name in a news story last month. He's alive. And speaking out. Then let's find him, Naveed said. Let's bring this to light. Meher looked hesitant. It's not that easy. People who talk, disappear. Then we don't talk. We expose. As they left the clinic, Meher's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She froze. Naveed grabbed the phone and answered. Who is this? Silence. Then a voice. Calm. Male. You should have let the dead stay buried. Click. They drove in silence. The road stretched ahead like a tunnel. Meher didn't speak. She just stared out the window. Naveed's mind was racing. This wasn't just about a hidden past. This was about lives. A system. And now, they were targets. That night, a message came under the door. Another photo. This time, of Naveed. Taken that morning. Getting out of the car. And written in small red letters. He dies next. Naveed stared at the photograph in his hands. It was him. Taken just hours ago, standing outside the Sector 17 clinic. His car in the background. A crow on the railing. The timestamp was handwritten in red ink. 10:47 a.m., he dies next. He felt Meher come up behind him. Her breath hitched when she saw the message. They're watching us, she whispered. Not just me, you now. He didn't answer. His throat was tight. Cold sweat clung to his back. Someone had taken this picture up close. Too close. They're playing with us, he muttered. No, she said. They're warning us. The next morning, Meher insisted on leaving the city. We need to disappear, she said. Go off-grid. Just for a few days. Let things cool down. But Naveed was shaking his head. No. Running didn't help the first time. We have a name now, Azan. If he survived, he could be the key. Meher looked unconvinced. He's just a kid. He was, Naveed replied. But he made it out. That means something. Or it means he was allowed to survive, for a reason. Naveed didn't reply. The words hung there, heavy and unspoken. But his resolve was clear. He pulled out his laptop. I'm going to find him. 3 hours later, he had a lead. Azan Farouk. 19 years old now. Student at a technical college in a nearby city, Rawalpindi. No social media. No interviews. But a local newspaper had once published a vague story. Local boy claims government facility held him and others during early childhood. Allegations unverified. The article was short. No follow-ups. But it listed the name of the journalist, Arshad Mian. Naveed called the paper first. The line rang forever, then disconnected. Dead end? Meher asked. Not yet, he replied, scrolling deeper. Arshad's Twitter is still active. His last post was from 4 days ago. A blurry photo of a man in a surgical mask, standing across the street. Caption. Been seeing him too often. If anything happens to me, check Sector 17. Naveed felt his stomach twist. Meher leaned over his shoulder. Message him. Now. Naveed typed quickly, fingers flying over the keyboard. We're looking for Azan Farouk. He's in danger. So are we. Please respond. Seconds ticked by. Nothing. Then. Ping. Too late. He's gone. Later that evening, they reached Rawalpindi. The city was loud. Busy. Noisy enough to hide in, but not quiet enough to feel safe. They checked into a budget motel under fake names. Naveed kept his hand on his bag, inside, the files from the clinic. Meher sat near the window, keeping watch. The reporter's last message haunted them both. He's gone. Did that mean dead? Missing? Taken? Only one way to find out. The college was a cluster of low-rise buildings. A mix of worn-out lecture halls and cracked pavement. It felt ordinary. Boring, even. But to them, it might as well have been a battlefield. Naveed went in alone. Meher waited in the car, sunglasses on, hair tucked under a scarf. He walked straight to the admissions office. Hi, I'm looking for a friend. Azan Farouk. I think he studies here. The woman behind the desk blinked. Checked her list. Second-year computer sciences. But he hasn't attended in 2 weeks. Is that normal? For him? Yes. Why? She gave him a look. Because half the time he's in hiding. Back in the car, Naveed told Meher what he'd learned. He's afraid. That means he knows something. They didn't have an address, but they had a name of a hostel he once lived in, Sundar Homes. It was run down. Faded sign. Rusted gate. A man with bloodshot eyes sat at the entrance, chewing tobacco. Azan, he repeated when asked. Yeah, he used to stay here. Left without saying a word. When? 10 days ago. Middle of the night. Naveed pressed, did he leave anything behind? The man shrugged. Check his locker. Last one on the left. They broke it open. Empty. Except for a small notebook. Tucked in the corner, under some dust and a dead insect. Naveed flipped it open. Drawings. Scribbled notes. Strange symbols. One page caught his eye. Meher. Still alive? Find the other 2. He stared at it. He knows your name, he said slowly. Meher's face went blank. What other 2? She whispered. What did you see back then? Naveed asked her. In those files. Names? I remember 4 survivors. Kids. But I only saved one full name, Azan. The others were in code. So this means, he's trying to find the rest? Or warn them, Meher said grimly. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Private number. She answered, voice tense. Hello? Silence. Then a whisper. You're running in circles. They were never meant to be found. Click. Her blood ran cold. We're being followed again. Naveed stood quickly. Let's go. We need to move. They barely made it to the car before a black van pulled into the alley behind them, no plates. Drive. Naveed shouted. Tires screeched. They weaved through narrow streets, horns blaring around them. The van followed, tight, unrelenting. We need to lose them. Meher yelled, checking the mirror. Naveed turned sharply into a construction zone. Loose gravel sprayed as they sped through. The van tried to follow. Too fast. Too tight. It slammed into a pile of bricks. Naveed didn't stop. They pulled into an underground parking lot and shut the engine. For a moment, no one spoke. Their hearts pounded in sync. Hands shaking. That wasn't random, Naveed said. They know we're close to something. The other 2, Meher murmured. We have to find them before he does. Naveed flipped through Azan's notebook again. One page had coordinates. Not an address, a location. Latitude and longitude. This isn't in Rawalpindi, Naveed said, checking his phone. It's deep south. A remote village in Sindh. Then that's where we go next, Meher said. Before it's too late. That night, just before sleep, Meher whispered something that made Naveed freeze. What if Rayhan isn't working alone? He turned toward her. What do you mean? I mean, what if he's not even in charge? What if he's just one piece of something bigger? Naveed didn't sleep after that. Morning. Before they could leave, a knock came at the motel room. 3 short knocks. Meher froze. Naveed reached for the bat under the bed. Another knock. Then a voice. It's me. Azan. They opened the door slowly. And there he was. Thin. Nervous. Barely a man, but his eyes, they were sharp. You've been looking for me, he said. Yes, Meher replied. And they've been looking for you too. Azan didn't flinch. Then let's stop running, he said. Because I have something they don't know I still have. He reached into his backpack. Pulled out a hard drive. And if I'm right, this has everything. Azan sat cross-legged on the floor of the motel room, the hard drive resting beside him like a ticking bomb. Naveed and Meher sat opposite him. Tension buzzed in the air like electricity before a storm. What exactly is on it? Naveed finally asked. Azan didn't answer right away. His fingers brushed the device lightly, like it was sacred, or dangerous. Before I escaped, Azan began, I stole this from the lab. It's one of the internal backup drives. I was just a kid, but I had memorized the key passwords from overhearing the techs. Meher leaned in. Her voice was low. You were inside the facility? Azan nodded. Not once. For years. I wasn't a visitor. I lived there. Flashback, Azan's memories. The place wasn't called a lab back then. It was called the shelter. A government-funded, welfare facility for abandoned or sick children. But it was never about care. It was about control. Azan remembered clean walls, harsh lights, no windows. Every morning began with pills. Every week ended with injections. There were cameras in every room. Even the bathrooms. There were no toys. No books. Just silence, obedience, and tests. They tested our fears, Aizen said. Our resistance to heat. Pain. Confusion. Sometimes they'd isolate us for days. He looked down. Eyes dark. The worst wasn't the pain. It was the way they smiled while doing it. Meher covered her mouth. Her eyes brimmed. Naveed looked away. His hands clenched into fists. We were lab rats, Aizen said, his voice hollow. They called it neuro-resilience conditioning. They were trying to see how much the human brain could take, how it could be broken, and rebuilt. He finally plugged the hard drive into the laptop. The screen flickered to life. Dozens of folders. Encrypted. He began typing. I cracked most of the security last year, he explained. I've been hiding ever since. Moving place to place. I knew if they found out I had this, they'd kill me. The first folder opened. Subjects category, high response file number 017, Meher. Naveed gasped. Meher stood frozen. What the hell is that? She asked. Aizen clicked. A video loaded. Video log, June 16, 2015. The screen showed a sterile white room. A teenage girl sat in the center. Pale. Thin. Wearing a hospital gown. That's not me, Meher said immediately. I never. The girl looked up. It was unmistakable. Her face. Younger. Bruised. But hers. The audio crackled. A voice spoke from off-screen. Subject 017. Begin phase 2. The girl flinched. Naveed paused the video. Meher, what is this? Her hands shook. I don't remember this. I don't. I've never seen that footage in my life. Aizen nodded slowly. That's what they do. They erase. Modify. Replace. They don't just test your body. They go inside your mind. Meher stood up. Her head was spinning. Flashbacks flickered, things that had never made sense before. The night terrors. The strange birthmark that wasn't always there. Her unexplained fear of white rooms. My parents, she whispered. They said I was adopted. But they didn't remember where from. It was like someone planted the memory. Aizen turned the laptop to another folder. They wiped most of our pasts. But some of us remembered. That's why they hunted us. Naveed's voice was tight. You said there were others. Yes, Aizen replied. For I knew. Me. Her. And 2 more. He opened another file. Subject number 014, Rayhan. Meher's blood froze. No, she whispered. No. That can't be. Rayhan was a handler. He was one of them. Aizen shook his head. He was one of us. At first. The screen showed a boy, maybe 11 or 12. Same dark eyes. Same unsettling calmness. They promoted him early, Aizen said. He adapted to their methods. Became part of the program. But not because he believed in it. Because he wanted power. Naveed looked at Meher. That's why he knew so much about you. Why he was always 2 steps ahead. He was trained to be, Aizen said. They built him that way. There was silence. The truth was too heavy. Meher wasn't just a witness. She was part of the project. And Rayhan? Not a monster from the outside, but a product of the same nightmare. A sibling in survival turned predator. Azan clicked to the final file. Survivor map. A digital interface appeared. Red pins marked 4 locations. Azan, Rawalpindi. Meher, disappeared, reappeared, Lahore. Subject number 009, unknown, last signal, Hyderabad. Subject number 006, confirmed deceased. I think number 009 is alive, Azan said. There was a brief location ping last week. South Sindh. And the other? Naveed asked. Azan hesitated. Hashtag 006 might have been the one they used to perfect the method. The final phase. Perfect what method? Meher asked. He hesitated. Then. Personality transfer. Erasure. Uploading neural pathways into others. They weren't just testing pain. They were trying to copy consciousness. Naveed's jaw tightened. That's not science. That's weaponization, Azan interrupted. They weren't building survivors. They were building ghosts that could possess bodies. Suddenly, the laptop screen glitched. A red alert flashed. Remote access detected. Tracking initiated. Azan cursed. They found us. Naveed slammed the lid shut. Grab everything. We move now. They packed in seconds. Out the motel door, down the stairwell. By the time they hit the parking lot, a black SUV was pulling in. Don't look back, Meher said, jumping in the car. Tires screeched. Engines roared. For hours they drove. Out of the city. Toward the desert stretches of Sindh. Dust clouds swallowed the road behind them. Azan finally spoke. If we find number 009, we have enough to expose them. And if they find us first? Naveed asked. Azan looked him dead in the eyes. Then none of this matters. Because they'll make sure the truth dies with us. They stopped at a small village for fuel. A boy sat under a tree, holding a radio. As they approached, the radio buzzed. 2 men and 1 woman traveling south. Vehicle gray. Suspects armed. Considered dangerous. Naveed froze. They're using police channels. They're everywhere, Meher said. We can't trust anyone. Suddenly, Azan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. You're almost there. But you won't like what you find. Attached was a photo. An old photo. Of all 4 children. Azan. Meher. A young girl with white streaks in her hair. And the last one. A boy with dead eyes. Rayhan. Azan dropped the phone. We were a team once. But they broke us apart. What's waiting in Sindh? Naveed asked. Azan answered quietly. The truth. And the last surviving ghost. The sun dipped low behind the Sindh horizon, casting long shadows over the cracked and dry earth. Their car rolled through a forgotten dirt road, no signposts, no lights, no civilization in sight. Azan sat in the back seat, staring at the phone. You're almost there. But you won't like what you find. The image of the 4 children haunted him. It wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a warning. Desert-bound. How much farther? Naveed asked, his voice steady but tight with tension. About 15 minutes, Azan replied. There's an abandoned cement factory. That's where the signal from subject number 009 last pinged. Meher rubbed her forehead. She was the girl with the white streak in her hair? Zoya, Azan whispered. They called her subject number 009. She remembered more than anyone. She tried to fight back. What happened to her? She disappeared after the breakout. We thought they'd taken her. But something tells me she escaped. Just like I did. Or, Naveed said grimly, they let her run, knowing she'd lead others back. No one spoke after that. The compound. By the time they arrived, the sky was ink black. Stars scattered like glass over velvet. The wind howled through the ruins of the factory, shattered windows, rusted beams, and walls that looked like they'd witnessed horrors no one should see. Azen raised a hand. We go on foot from here. He led the way, flashlight low, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The air smelled of sulfur and dust. Every step echoed. They reached what looked like an old storage hangar, its large doors sealed shut with a metal crossbar. Azen knelt and removed a loose panel from the side. I used this before, he said. There's a crawl space. Follow me. Inside the monster. The tunnel led into darkness. Meher felt the walls close around her. Her breathing quickened. She hated tight spaces. Something in her chest screamed to run. Suddenly, flash. A memory. A steel box. No light. No air. Screaming. I can't, she gasped. Azen reached back and gripped her hand. They put us in boxes like this when we resisted. You're safe. You're not there anymore. His voice anchored her. She pushed through. Inside, the room opened up. To their left, broken lab equipment. To their right, long tables with shackles. And in the center, a solitary chair. Still intact. Bloodstains under it. The room pulsed with the ghosts of the past. Azen flicked on his flashlight again, scanning for signs of life. Then they heard it. A rustle. From above. They all looked up. A figure. Crouched on the second level. Watching them. White streaks in her long black hair. The survivor. She dropped silently, cat-like, landing on the balls of her feet. Her eyes were sunken, her face thin. But her gaze, sharp and alive. You came, she said. Took you long enough. Azen stepped forward. Zoya. She gave a weak smile. Still using that name, huh? Mine was erased years ago. What's left is just a ghost. Meher stared at her. You're real. That depends on what real means to you. My memories? Most are fragments. My body? It's mine. I think. But my mind? They filled it with experiments. Voices that aren't mine. Thoughts that don't feel like mine. She stepped closer to Meher. And you? The favorite. The blank slate. The one they almost perfected. Meher stepped back. I don't remember anything. I didn't ask for any of this. Zoya's face twisted. None of us did. The tape room. Zoya led them through the back hallway, past a collapsed corridor, into what she called the archive. A room with hundreds of tapes, drives, and boxes. Each labeled with numbers. No names. They kept everything here. Footage. Logs. Transfer experiments. It's how I learned who I was. She handed Azen a dusty hard drive. Watch file 027. Azen connected it to the laptop. A video played. Video log, subject 006, final phase. 2 children sat side by side. One, Meher. The other, a girl with burns down one side of her face. The scientist in the video spoke. Initiating final protocol. Memory duplication and transference from donor to host. Subject 006 will serve as vessel. Meher, the girl, was unconscious. The other girl screamed. A helmet-like device was placed over both heads. Seconds later, the screen glitched. Then, black. Zoya pressed pause. Subject 006 wasn't a donor. She was the victim. Meher swallowed. You mean, that girl's memories were put into me? Zoya nodded. Not all. But enough to make you unstable. You were their final prototype. They erased your past to make room for hers. Whose memories did I get? Mine. The shatter. Meher stumbled back. The room spun. Her own memories, the fragments, the night terrors, the fear of steel and light, it wasn't just trauma. It was someone else's pain. She had lived someone else's nightmares. That's why I can't remember my childhood, Meher whispered. Because it wasn't mine. Zoya stepped forward. You carry my ghost. You walk around with my screams inside you. Why would they do that? Naveed asked. Azan answered. To create perfect subjects. Erased past. Controlled personality. Trainable minds. And Rayhan? Meher asked. What was he? Zoya's eyes darkened. He was the first full transfer. He wasn't born Rayhan. He became Rayhan. He volunteered. Volunteered? Azan echoed. He wanted power. Freedom. He sold his identity in exchange for becoming one of them. He's not Rayhan anymore. He's a vessel for the original architect. What architect? The man who designed all this. The director of the program. Rayhan's mind was wiped. The architect's neural map was uploaded into him. Incoming. Suddenly, the ground rumbled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Zoya turned to the door. They found us. Azan looked at the laptop. We have the proof. We need to get out. Too late, Zoya said. They've sealed the compound. A siren wailed. Red lights began flashing. There's a tunnel, Zoya said. Follow me. They ran. Down the left corridor. Past broken screens. Past sealed glass tanks. Through a narrow stairwell. Then. A voice boomed through speakers. Zoya. Azan. Meher. You've come far enough. It was him. Rayhan. Face to face. They entered a small room at the end of the tunnel, steel walls, no exits. Rayhan stood in the center. Clad in black. Calm. Smiling. I warned you. But you insisted. Zoya snarled. You're not Rayhan. You're just a shell. He tilted his head. Perhaps. But shells are useful. They can be filled. They can serve. Meher stepped forward. What am I? Rayhan studied her. The perfect question. You are a canvas. Carefully wiped clean. Decorated with borrowed pain. Why me? Because your mind accepted it. Your brain didn't fight back. You were the only one who didn't resist. That made you, the crown jewel. Azan shouted. You turned her into your puppet. Rayhan smiled again. And yet, here she is, free. Curious. Alive. No one forced her to come. I'm here to end this, Meher said. And I will. He sighed. You can't destroy what's already been distributed. The files? Already backed up across 7 nodes worldwide. Kill me, and the ghost just finds another shell. Zoya drew a knife. Then we'll cut out the ghost. Climax. Rayhan lunged. Azan tackled him. Meher grabbed the laptop. Zoya stabbed, but Rayhan moved fast, dodging, striking her across the jaw. Naveed pulled a metal rod from the wall and swung, hitting Rayhan in the ribs. He staggered. Azan grabbed the drive and shouted, "Run!" But Meher didn't. She faced Rayhan. "You want to live in me? Then die in me." She pulled the broken wire from the wall, live current exposed, and drove it into the center console. Sparks exploded. The lights shattered. Rayhan screamed. Smoke filled the room. Everything went dark. Silence. When Meher opened her eyes, Zoya was beside her. Azan coughed, helping Naveed up. But Rayhan was gone. Just gone. Only ashes and metal. Aftermath. They emerged from the tunnel at dawn. Behind them, the compound burned. Meher clutched the hard drive. The truth now rested with her. Zoya looked at her one last time. "I'm done running. But you? You have a chance to live. Just make sure it's your life this time." She turned and disappeared into the dunes. The dawn was cold, but Meher felt a fire inside her, a fierce, trembling energy she hadn't known was there. Azan, Naveed, and Meher stood watching the last smoke curl from the ruins of the compound. The desert breeze carried away the scent of burned secrets. The hard drive, their last piece of evidence, rested in Meher's hands like a fragile promise. "We did it," Naveed said softly. "No," Meher replied, her voice low but steady. "We just began. New battles." Azan pulled out his phone, dialing a contact whose number was saved simply as allies. "They have the files," he said, eyes scanning the horizon. "Good. Because the world needs to know." The other side of the line was brief. "We'll move fast. Prepare for backlash." Meher looked at Azan. "Backlash? Governments. Agencies. The people who made this happen. They won't like their secrets exposed." Naveed shook his head. "We're not just fighting shadows anymore. We're fighting an entire system. The past returns." Days later, Meher sat in a dimly lit room, the laptop open before her. The files on the hard drive had been copied, encrypted, and sent to trusted journalists and human rights groups. But the emotional weight was heavy. She stared at the footage, her own face, a stranger's memories, the girl who'd lived a nightmare for her. A knock. Azan entered quietly. "How are you holding up?" She sighed. "Like a ghost trapped in someone else's story." He sat beside her. "You're not a ghost. I don't know who I am anymore." Confronting identity. Meher closed her eyes and recalled the fragmented memories. The white rooms, the injections. The empty space where childhood should have been. What if the me I remember is just a lie? Azan took her hand. "What you are now is real. Not the memories forced into you, but your choices, your fight, your strength." Meher looked at him, tears welling. "I want to believe that." A call from the past. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" A voice, a whisper she recognized. "Meher. Who is this? You don't know me, but you will. What do you want?" "Answers. Truth. Meet me. One last place where everything began." Before she could respond, the line went dead. The final place. That night, Meher, Azan, and Naveed drove to the coordinates sent via text. An old, abandoned school on the outskirts of Lahore. Inside, dust-covered desks and faded drawings on cracked walls. But there, in a hidden basement, was a door, locked, but not for long. Azan used a tool to pick it. Inside, rows of files. Files with names, dates, and photos. One file was labeled Project Archive, the architect's plan. Revelations. As they sifted through, a picture fell out. A man in a white coat, smiling coldly. Azan read aloud. Dr. Hassan Qureshi, lead scientist on the Neuro-Resilience Conditioning Program. Believed human consciousness could be digitized and transferred, effectively creating immortality. Meher's hands trembled. So, he's the architect? Naveed nodded. The man behind the horrors. The one who turned children into weapons. More files revealed letters between Qureshi and government officials. The project was deemed too dangerous but continued in secret. Meher's eyes caught a note. Subject number 010, the prototype. Successful transfer. Identity lost. Ethical concerns ignored. The final twist. Suddenly, Meher gasped. A photo. A child, her as a toddler, held by a woman. A second glance revealed the woman's face, her own mother. She looked closer at the file labeled Subject number 010. It can't be, Meher whispered. Azan looked. Subject #010, that means. I'm not just a victim, Meher said slowly. I'm the original. The memories flooded back in pieces. They didn't erase my childhood. They erased my past self to create the weapon. Tears streamed. I was the prototype, the first to survive the transfer. But the real me was buried. And the one who survived, is a ghost made from fragments. Breaking the chains. Azan stood. That means you can redefine who you are. But how? Meher asked. By owning your story. Not the one they wrote for you, but the one you choose. I want to be more than the experiments, the stolen memories. A new beginning. The next days were hard. The world reacted, some with disbelief, some with outrage, others with fear. But Meher spoke openly, sharing her story with courage and clarity. She joined survivors, activists, and journalists in pushing for transparency and justice. Our minds are not weapons, she said in a televised interview. Our stories are not theirs to erase. The lesson. In the quiet moments, Meher reflected on everything. The pain, the fear, the loss. But also hope. Survival isn't just about staying alive, she thought. It's about reclaiming your soul. Finding truth when lies surround you. And choosing who you become, not who others decide. Closing scene. Under the same stars where the story began, Meher stood on a rooftop, looking out at the city lights. Azan joined her. What now? Now, Meher said, I live. Not as a ghost, but as me. She smiled, a smile born from battles fought and won. The screen faded to black. The end.